2:17, November 8th. Begin recording.
This world is sick, filled with scum and filth, twisted people who are only out there to harm, to cause pain, only to please themselves. People just like me. But I've got something I want to tell you. I want the world to finally open its eyes and react, so we can finally save the innocent. And I'm going to do that in the one way I know best. Quite frankly, it is the only way, the purest way, through art. I need someone to help me out. Because this is not a one-man project. Please, why don't you join me and be part of the creation?
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? This setup involved a little bit of audio fidgeting to make sure that it all worked as intended. So just let me know if you think the volume levels are okay. And also, hello, if you can hear me, to Sartelius, who has not been able to make a stream until now, and I'm very happy you're here. Let's just do this. I'm not sure how great of a delay there is between me and you, but do let me know if the audio levels are okay. And also, of course, that you can see stuff that's going on the screen and stuff. It looks good in OBS, but you never know. I'm just going to put on capture cursor here so that you can see my mouse cursor as well. Give me a sec. I'm just going to move my live streaming window over there because y'all don't need to see that. Okay, cool. I'm getting some good feedback. People are seeing things. People are hearing things. Okay, wonderful. So today we're going to do a little bit of a shorter stream. I've been absent for a couple of weeks now because I've had some really bad health troubles, and I'm only just now kind of like recovering and getting back into the swing of things again. And I really wanted to stream some more, but I had a couple of different ideas of what to do, but then I figured since this wonderful trailer that you just saw has now been released, the link to the trailer and also to the Steam page where you can wishlist Partum Artifex will be in the description of this video, by the way. And please do wishlist it if you think it looks good, because both me and Joachim, the dev, we are both very excited about this one. But yeah, so I figured since the trailer was just out, I would just go through my process of doing all the things for it, because for this trailer, I did the voice for the only speaking role in the game. I also wrote the music and I did all the sound design. So I figured we would get a little look into the mad mind of Frederick as he's working. The eagle-eyed of you may see already that there are actually there are 4 tabs up here, and that is because I ran into a couple of weird issues as I was working on this. And one of them was that my templates for my contact stuff just didn't load properly for whatever reason. So I basically had to do the good old-fashioned way of like exporting track by track and stuff. I'll show you in good time. So first of all, the very first thing that happened before the trailer was even a thing is that Joachim sent me a script, which I recorded for him. And that is what you're hearing in the trailer. It's the...
This world is sick.
Right? This narration is exactly what made it into the trailer. just as it is. I think Joachim made a couple of minor edits here and there, just in terms of timing. Joachim, I see you're in the chat. By the way, hi. You feel free to clarify anything if I get anything wrong. I think the only thing you did was basically move the whole thing forward a little bit, and you didn't really edit the timing a whole lot. But for those of you who are curious about the mixing side of things, this is my effects chain for the narration here. We start out with a saturator, which I just basically set to soft. I went with a preset. I just wanted to get some extra kind of warmth and depth to the sound. I'll just mute everything except that, and you can hear, well, this is what it sounded like without any effects. And of course, as you can tell, man, there is a delay, right, on the thing? Ah, well, anyway. As you can tell, I've already done some extensive editing here. Every single, I have this thing called auto trim and split items remove silence. This is something that I do when I edit audiobooks a whole ton. You basically just select a part, like a couple of audio, like media items, right? And you just use this. And this box pops up. These are my settings that I usually use. And what it does is basically it identifies anything below a certain loudness level, and it just puts it just splits at that point, which saves me a lot of time. When it comes to audiobook editing and stuff, then of course I need to edit out breaths and pops and clicks and stuff, and I do this all the time, right? So that's the first thing that happened, and that also adds a tiny little fade out and sometimes a little fade in. No, actually every single time, a small fade in on each and every one of these clips. And so I'm just going to go ahead and...
This world.
There we go. Joachim says, I did change a few things here and there timing-wise, but I didn't cut anything out. Yeah, no, you kept the narration as is. It's just a few timing things, right? And so, of course, there's a reverb on as well. But if we just go with how my voice sounds, I'm just going to go with one slightly longer passage. I'm going to do this one. This is what it sounded like, completely raw, right? Like after editing.
Filled with scum and filth.
I'm over enunciating every single word.
I want the world to finally open its eyes and react.
That's a good clip, I think. Sometimes I've left the slight intake of breath here and there because I think that just adds it adds color and depth to the whole thing, I think. And so, well, I'm just going to play from here, and then I'm going to turn on the saturator, and you can maybe hear just the slight little difference it makes.
I want the world to finally open its eyes and react.
Without?
So we can finally save the innocent.
It just gives a small edge to it. The second thing that I did was Vitamin, which is a vocal compressor, which is very nice, and I don't use it nearly enough. It's a Waves plugin. I actually own quite a lot of the Waves plugins, and I'm trying to figure out good use cases for them because a lot of the time I tend to just go with a lot of like stock stuff that Reaper came with because it's actually quite good. But this one I wanted to try out, and so I put the vocal compressor on, and now we get...
I want the world to finally open its eyes.
Right? Now you get this presence, right? Without...
I want the world to finally open its eyes.
And with...
I want the world to finally open its eyes.
Yeah, you can clearly tell that there's a difference, right? And the next thing is an EQ. And you can tell here that I've done some fairly surgical things. Well, not this one. This one is just a boost at 92 or 93 hertz. This is just to give me a bit more oomph and warmth. This, however, is a very common cut that I tend to do with a lot of stuff. Especially things that kind of live in the lower end of the frequency range. Around 200 to 300 hertz is where boxiness tends to happen. Like, you get this kind of like boomy kind of boxy sound, right? And you don't need to do a whole lot, but I do like just cutting that out. So, and also up here is just a sibilant rein in, kind of, right? I've identified where my s sounds are very, very loud, and I've just done just a dip down there. So this is without the EQ, right?
I want the world to finally open its eyes.
And this is with the EQ.
I want the world to finally open its eyes.
So it's not a whole lot, but it's there, and I feel like you can clearly tell, right? And now, after I have done the EQ, I add a final compressor, and this is another one specifically. I read up a lot of this, and apparently HComp, which is another Waves stuff, and it's a Waves hybrid compressor, apparently. I don't exactly, the details escape me sometimes, but I listen to the sound a lot, and this one is used often on vocals. So this is without that compressor on.
I want the world to finally open its eyes.
And this is with it, right?
I want the world to finally open its eyes.
And now the voice is right here, right? Before it was kind of over here, kind of, and now it's like wham, it's right here, right? Because I really wanted to go for that like almost aggressive trailer sound on the on the voice, so that it was clear, right? Like really in your face, and not that dynamic. That said, I did end up having to do some small edits later on, but yeah. And finally, a reverb, and I'm actually using two reverbs on this. I'm using R-verb, and I'm also using a medium concert verb. But I'm thinking there was a reason for that. This was weeks ago, and I do not remember, but I do like the effect of it. So you get...
I want the world to finally open its eyes.
Right? So now it's just got that kind of slight extra presence to it, and it feels like someone is speaking inside of like a large room. I like the sound of it. Do I know exactly what thought process went into doing two reverbs? No, but I'm assuming I had a very good reason for it. We can just, let's see here. Let's turn this one off for a second.
I want the world to finally open its eyes. I want the world to finally open its eyes.
Yeah, it's subtle, but it's there, And then finally, I don't have it included here because I think I have a different version for it that I finally exported to Joachim, but I would have put a limiter on the master over here because I see that it peaked a little bit. Alternately, I may actually had just dragged down the master volume a little bit. That's not something you're supposed to do, really. You're supposed to, mix properly before everything hits the master. But sometimes us mixing engineers get a tiny little bit lazy. Sertalia says the end result is really good. Thank you. I'm really, really happy with how it ended up in the trailer as well. I did some extra stuff to it once it came, when it came time to get it into the full mix. But yeah, so that is like...
Because this is not a one-man project. Please. Why don't you join me and be part of the creation?
And so the mic, by the way, is this. It just came with the Focusrite Scarlett. I am in the process of ordering a better mic for voiceover. Right now, I don't have the funds, and honestly, I think it sounds quite okay. Like, is it the best voiceover mic in the world? No, but it works, right? So, let us move on to the juicy details, right? Because by now, Joachim had sent me the video. So, at this point, I was now able to put the video into Reaper. And now, I could score to it. But before I could score to it, I realized that he actually had a little sequence at the start. We had talked about this before. When the main character walks in and presses the button on this little tape recorder. And that had to be, we had to put sound design to that. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to go ahead and find where that was. It is down here. Yeah, this is the voiceover. And this is the sound. These are the sound effects, right? So it's... And I see that I actually put the trailer hits in sound effects as well, which, you know, I don't know what I think about that, but the trailer hits are actually exported for something else. I'll go through that later. The sound design here is quite simple. The footsteps are a combination of a couple of free ones that I already owned since earlier, and a couple of steps that I recorded myself, and I just kind of put them together. Together with a room tone that I genuinely do not remember where I got from, but it might be a free sound. Yeah, it's a free sound room tone, which is just this kind of... Oh, let's mute the... So you just have this very, very soft... Like, I'm not even sure you can hear it, right? It's very soft. And then we have... And since in this... You don't see it, but I imagined that it would be raining outside, so I have a very gentle rain as well. And it's panned very gently to the right, and this is a rain sound that I recorded myself as well. And it's panned to the right because if you look in the video here, well, it's not entirely clear, but I imagined that there would be... Yeah, I think the way this room works is that there is a window over to the right somewhere here. So that's the room tone, and then we have the footsteps Foley kind of thing. Just me coming in from the right here, and then you can see that I'm doing... let's see here. I have this footsteps folder here, and I have a slight volume like automation here, or envelope going, and then also I have a small pan envelope because I'm coming in from the right speaker and then heading towards the center, so you get this, right? And then I do a very obvious stop. And then I have a tape recorder sound here. I don't... Is this from... No, this is actually one that I recorded myself as well. And it's actually from a tape recorder that me and my partner found at a nearby like thrift store, basically. I wanted a really like authentic, you know, that kind of plasticky click and then the spring of the metal, and that sound, like this really meaty kind of... Right? This has been heavily... You can see here, maybe you can't. Well, maybe you can if you look at this in full screen mode. But over here, it says RAID 0.611. So this has been heavily time stretched. It was basically... It's time stretched so that it fits with the video. Like, you can tell that it is, like, very much, like... It fits exactly with that. And it's time stretched just to the point where it... Like, just before it starts sounding completely unnatural. And then the final narration that I improvised. I'm just gonna go ahead and do this. And this is the VO. Sadly, I can only see... Yeah, I have the sonic anomaly here, but the original recording of this seems to have been lost. I must have done this in a different project. I didn't do it in this one, so I don't actually know where this came from. But I do have a vinyl kind of scratchy, kind of broken vinyl kind of effect on this, so that it sounds weird and, you know, kind of unnerving. And then you can tell there's another pan envelope here that just kind of softly pans to the left because the camera is going to move when this narration starts. So we get
2:17, November 8th, begin recording.
Right. This is also all sent to a room reverb, which is just there to kind of give it the feeling of a slightly claustrophobic room with wooden paneling on the floor. The narration of 2:17...
2:17, November 8th.
And November 8th are in-jokes. 2:17 is the hotel room in the Overlook Hotel in The Shining, which horror fans would be familiar with. And November 8th is my dad's birthday. Now, once we've done that, we get to the music, and I am going to keep the narration off. I want to talk a little bit about what my thought process was and how I came to the conclusions that I did. Because when I had a completely different idea for this trailer to begin with when I watched the video, but then it just didn't feel right, and I ended up scrapping that whole idea and starting over. And what I needed to find a good base, like something that felt like it really... Well, November 8th is the day after my birthday, says Sir Telias. Well, hey. I wanted to find a cool sound to kind of build an ostinato on top of, right? So I wanted like a pad or a texture, excuse me, that I could then build a repeated string kind of line on top of that could then grow and grow and grow so that it would be feel like a trailer. And it took me a good while to find this, but it turns out that the solution was there all along, much like much like Ludwig's actual holy blade in Bloodborne. It was there at my side all along, and it was this little gem right here. It was the violin textures from Emergence Audio, which is this amazing thing that I am going to demonstrate for you right now. Let's see. So it's basically a long recording of flautando and sul ponticello strings that are then just played together and kind of manipulated in real time, and it's just gorgeous, and it just creates this really unnerving mat, right? So I started out with recording this passage, and yeah, so there's also... Like, when the mod wheel is at the bottom, you get slightly more warmth, and when it's at the top, you get a cutoff. So I just recorded these two chords because after experimenting with it a bit, I just felt like these really spoke to me. So I got this, right? And because it's flautando, right, you get these like really unnerving, like flute-ish, like really harsh overtones, and just, I mean, basically, yeah, it feels like the strings are very cold and about to break, which really spoke to me. So this just keeps going back and forth between those chords until the very end, where it just goes. And that's where, that's where it would end. And so now that I had that, right, and I just kind of, I recorded that with the video, and I just kind of figured out that, yeah, this will work. The ending didn't quite work, which is why you'll see what I did later on. That's why this track is muted in this project file here, because I then rendered all of that into a new audio recording, which is up here in a folder that I call Violin Textures. And in here, we have the texture pad, which is like the main bass sound. And right, I haven't done anything to this except some volume automation via an envelope down here. So you can see like when when this gets quiet, I increase the volume. And basically, I'm doing a kind of a live compression to it, but I still wanted to keep the dynamics of it. And then you can tell right here, I realized right about here that, oh crap, this isn't gonna cut it. I need this chord to happen over here. So I've basically taken this passage right here, I cut that, and then I pasted and crossfaded that just multiple times over and over and over until I could finally get the correct timing for this final one here. Could I have time stretched it? Maybe, but when I work like this, I just go, you know? I don't think, I just do. That's also the reason why you see some of these markers are like in the wrong place. Because I think I figured out at this point that this was like an important thing, and I started putting like the marker 1 here. But then I have like 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and 7 over here. So yeah, this one is just the same as you just heard. With the little difference that over here, you get this kind of... And you can also see here that some of these say rate 0.593. So I've done some really like severe time stretching on these to make them last longer. Joachim says, it sounds like fallen angels playing on rustic strings out in the foggy woods. That's an amazing visual and I love it. And yes, if that's what it sounds like, heck yeah. So yeah, you can see here too, I've done some slight, like every time there's a crossfade between these two, I've done a slight tweaking. And that's where these markers come in, because they indicate a new chord change. Because I wanted these to follow a tempo. I do have this in tempo 85, so it does follow like a... So it's 4 bars each, right? Now, once I was done with that texture, I was so in love with the main texture, but I really wanted to do more things to it, right? Like, it works the way it, like, just the way it is, but I felt like I wanted to do more. So what I did was I copied this entire section here, duplicated that into a new track down here, and now I started to do some weird stuff. So the audio is the same, but it goes through some different things. It goes through a lot of things, actually. First of all, I'm throwing it into an EQ, which just cuts everything below 325 hertz, and everything above about, around 979. Everything above there, and just keeps everything in the middle, so you get this kind of like band-passed thing. And then I apply one of my favorite old school plugins to it, which is D-Blue Glitch, which is such a classic, and a lot of electronic musicians will be familiar with this one. What this basically does is it's just, I've randomized a couple of like weird things that it can do to the audio. It can cause a dropout, a ring modulation, like a tape stop, a re-trigger of the samples. You get this like that kind of sound. And all of that follows an internal little pattern sequencer that it has here. And I love it. It just does fun things to sounds. Then I have one of my other favorite old school plugins, which is called, and I love this name, Bionic Super Delay. Which is wonderful, and it's just this, it's in an insane reverb that just, you can do so many things with it. And then finally, once I'm done with all of that, I have another EQ that just cuts everything that I may have like boosted below a certain point. And so this track now sounds like this. I'm gonna boost this up a little bit so you hear it clearly here. And every time I hit, you see this little purple thing hits here. That is me basically bypassing the delay that is insane and all over the place, so that the delay can be... yeah, go ahead, Joachim. That's fun. tell them that the VOD is going to be up on my YouTube later too. So if they've missed anything, that's fine. But yeah, every single time this little purple thing hits, that is me bypassing the delay, and because it's going all over the place, and then I'm re-triggering it again so that it has a new signal to work with. And that is how I avoid this. Right? It doesn't do it entirely, but it cuts enough of it that I'm okay with the kind of like the background thing happening. And so we have that. And then I decided that I wanted something else to add to the kind of like the uncomfortable top of it as well. So I duplicated the original signal up here again, and I just put it on a new track again. And this time I do some other stuff with it. So this time, let's open this up, and we have another EQ, and this one, it's another bandpass, but this time I only allow basically things to cut through at around 2000 hertz, and everything below there and above there gets cut. Then I apply another instance of D-Blue Glitch, because you can never have enough D-Blue Glitch, and then another instance of Bionic Supa Delay, because again, you can never have enough of that. And then another EQ, just to make sure, nothing above, like, what's that, like around 2000 hertz. Nothing below that gets let through. Then finally, I have Magic Dice, which is a free plugin from Baby Audio, which is a delay plugin that just never sounds the same every time you trigger a new version of it. You can just, it's basically randomized delay, and it's very cool. And Magic Switch is the same, but for a chorus effect. And then finally, I have a built-in ping pong pan plugin that just came with Reaper. And so what you get from this little thing here is you get and it just sounds very uncomfortable, but all of this needs to kind of come together, right? So when all of this is happening at the same time, then you get this kind of thick, weirdly glitchy texture. And I just love that sound, right? And that took me a while to really kind of like get that sound right. But I think it sounds really cool when all of it is put together. But of course, I couldn't have just that. And I'd always planned on doing a string orchestra ostinato playing something, right? And so I just played around with it for a while, and I decided on this figure here, which is what you hear in the trailer. And I'm going to play it with the clearest example of it first, which is going to be this one, I think. Right? Something funky happened with the volume there, but that's fine. I think there might be a volume thing happening in the background that I'm not showing, which is fine. It didn't make it into the final mix. All of these things are like very blurry in my mind right now. But yeah, so that's the ostinato, right? And what it is just this. And you can tell if I zoom in on the MIDI here that none of this is exactly on the dot, right? Like this is in, I'm gonna put this in 8/16, let's see, yeah. And then you can see here, right? Like you have all of these are slightly before, because I used various different string libraries for these staccatos. or actually spiccatos, but these are staccatos. It's a whole thing. And these libraries that I'm using here, I'm gonna look at the contact window again, and you can see here, right? Like I have string ensemble here. This is Albion 2, Loegria, which I love from Spitfire. And then we have Albion 1, which is also from Spitfire. And both of them are playing the staccato articulation. But the problem with them is that they are a little delayed. So when you play them, they don't always trigger immediately. And that is for realism, but that also means that when I've recorded them, I kind of need to make sure that they are, like, if I write the MIDI notes by hand, I need to move them all to the left a little bit. But if I record it, it tends to be okay. It's just I can't quantize it, right? But it ends up working out. Hi, Mel. The Loegria strings are fantastic. They actually have... I don't use any of that in this particular track, but you do have a couple of really cool ones. Specifically, you can the Loegria library comes with a consordino articulation, which is just, you know, a sordino that you can put on, which mutes the strings. It also has a flautando patch or articulation. I'm not using it here because the violin textures here are taking care of all of that weird sound, and all I wanted was just this kind of... my main source of inspiration for this, the ostinato here, was actually, and that might make Joachim laugh a little bit, but it was actually like kind of like British crime dramas. I wanted it to sound like a smaller chamber ensemble. So yeah, I basically stacked these staccatos on top of each other. So we have Loegria, and then we have Albion. And to begin with, those are the only strings. But then when things start getting more intense, I add some more. And this time I add the... I have all of these here, and these are Tokyo scoring strings, which is a wonderful, wonderful string library from Impact Soundworks. And they... Normally, I would use them for long, like, legato passages and glissandi, but I wanted to double up with more strings, and I just basically used what I had. And so we get this too, right? And just kind of broadening the sound. And then over here, like... I should also go down here, because I also had to contend with one of my greatest enemies with it, which is East West Quantum Leap's play engine, because I also have, let's see if, yeah, there we go. I also have the Hollywood Strings Diamond going here, and so I have the violin, viola, cello, and basses spiccatos here. And so I add them as well, and all of this is basically just violas, right? Now this sounds like garbage because none of this is mixed yet. Was that the Tokyo Strings solo or everything stacked? No, that was everything stacked, but let me just solo the scoring strings real quick so that you can hear what that sounded like. This is just the Tokyo scoring strings viola spiccatos. I would say that spiccatos, like, they work very well, and also you don't necessarily need to use TSS this way. What I'm doing here to save on resources, because I wasn't sure how big this project was going to get, it didn't get that big, but I basically, you can tell if I go into Contact real quick that I have done some. If I look at the violas here, you can see that this thing here is orange. Basically, I have sample purged anything out that I don't use from these, because each TSS library is just, I mean, I think like at least almost 2 gigabytes each, right? And I didn't need that if I was just going to use the spiccatos. And I also just wanted these for extra tone color. I didn't want them to be prominent. You'll see later when I get to the mixing phase. Right now, this is just me kind of doubling up on everything. But yeah, so there's some memory saving shenanigans happening here as well. Sortelia says, so glad they replaced Play with Opus. Not perfect, but far better than Play. I haven't actually tried Opus yet. That's the paid version, yeah? I mean, I might actually switch to it because using Play is just a horrible pain in the butt. It loads, I mean, Contact and everything in Contact loads in almost like 0 time flat in Reaper, and Play just takes like actually a minute or so. And this is like 64 gigabytes of RAM on like a very good SSD drive loading that, and that still is not fast enough. But yeah, so we have those strings, right? The Albion and the Loegria, and we have the TSS violas, and we also have the extra viola spiccatos from Play here. And what we basically achieve with this is just a wider, fuller, more interesting string sound, right? Like, I'm a huge advocate of blending everything that you have into a unique color of your own instead of just going like, oh, I'm going to stick with one library. Sometimes one library is better than others, but in this case, I wanted all of them, right? And also, when the intensity ramps up, I'm adding some double bass, contrabass, cellos, and they just mark the start of this. Right? All of this is, by the way, it is me recording this, and then I've quantized some of it so that it is exactly on the beat, because I realized after a while that some of it had to be on the beat. Otherwise, you could kind of tell that everything was kind of off kilter. Joachim says, I love all this sound design chat. I barely understand anything, but it's so interesting. Well, technically right now we're not even on sound design. This is more like virtual orchestration, but I'm glad you're having a good time. And if anyone wants to ask any questions, please feel free to do so. I am happy to answer them. The final little thing that I did here also was I added an instance of Furia staccato strings, which is also from Impact Soundworks, and what that basically is just this kind of... It's just basically an all-purpose, all strings across all sections kind of thing. And that is the final thing that I added to kind of like go into the whole like big string section sound. And then, because this has been going on for a while, and so I wanted to add like a little counter thing. Never mind that. That is just the delay catching up with my overpressure strings over there. But yeah, so finally I wanted to add some high violin 1 and 2 spiccatos, and I'll just solo them, and I'll also solo them down here, and you get this kind of you know what, I'll not do the Furia for now, and you get this. And together you just have a very kind of thick kind of mat of strings, which I think works very well. Of course, right now none of it is mixed, so it is not like sounding good, but sometimes I prefer to work this way, where I kind of write everything the way I know it it has to be written first, and then I mix it. Not always, but sometimes. And for this particular project, I actually had to do it for other reasons, my template. However, I wasn't done with this ostinato yet, because I kind of wanted to accentuate it with something else, and so I added the modern harpeggi, which is another very, very cool sound or instrument from Impact Soundworks, and it is basically this. which I think just works really well with the rest of the strings. I'll just solo out I'll just get all the strings in here again. And what you can tell now that it kind of blends in with the rest. Like, you don't hear it that clear. Well, you will hear it clearly here, but in the final mix they will be very understated, like the arpeggios and the other thing I added. But yeah, you get this kind of it's just kind of in the background. And then finally, the very last thing that I did was add this. And this is one of my favorite little things in the world right now. It's called Vital. And Vital is just a really cool 3-oscillator synth, which it comes with tons of presets, but I rolled my own for this one because I wanted to get... Oh yeah, I can say the arpeggio is really fun, actually. If you'll remind me later, I can demonstrate it a little bit more for you. But right, like, it's got a lot of cool sounds. So this is just like it's got a lot of other fun little layers to it as well, and different presets. I actually don't know what preset, if any, I'm using here. Let me just check that out real quick. Also, you can tell, by the way, that I thought that this contact instance was just going to be strings, but because I've called it contact strings, and then it turns out it didn't actually. It doesn't just contain that. Let's see here. Yeah, so I'm using the Distant Piano Dream preset for this one, but it's got so many others. It's a wonderful instrument. I think it's really fun to play with. But yeah, the final thing that I did was Vital. And again, Vital, I love it. It comes with a lot of really cool... oh, let's see. I'm just going to respond to Mel's question here first. Are you passing that through a delay, or is that baked into the instrument? This particular delay for this... let's see here. That is actually part of the contact snapshot that I've loaded in here. That's part of the Distant Piano Dream. And the Impact Soundworks, they always have this really cool, like, little internal console mixing thingy. And sometimes, you know, presets are good. I really like rolling my own, and I also very often like to use my own delays and stuff, but sometimes you come across a sound that just feels like, and it just kind of hits the spot, right? And I was just, yeah, this is good. I like this. So it is not passed through any kind of send. It is just internal. Oh yeah, no, I can heartily recommend the Modern Arpeggio. It's a really cool instrument. Full disclosure, though, not because I feel like I should mention that I am an employee of Impact Soundworks, so I do truly love their instruments, but I feel like I should mention that just to have all cards on the table. However, I do love their stuff, and I really do recommend the Arpeggio. So now I'm gonna just move to Vital real quick. Vital, again, is a very cool synth that comes with a lot of stuff. So it comes with 3 oscillators, and you can do whatever you want with those. You have built-in effects that I'm using in this case. It comes with a matrix that I'm not using for this one, and a lot of like advanced stuff that you can do. It comes with tons of presets as well, but this time I rolled my own because what I really wanted was this kind of like... kind of like this kind of delay pluck with an octave to it. And so I just fiddled around with the different oscillators and different things. Mel and Nick are legends, by the way, Frederick. Their support during development has been insane. Well, thank you, Mel and Nick. And I'm very happy you're here. I'm so happy I get to talk about like the process behind writing my music. That is what I'll be using these streams for a lot in the future, I think. And thank you so much for your support. So yeah, what I did here was basically, I think of this as the Mass Effect, and you'll probably hear what I mean when I play this, right? And the only thing that I'm doing here is I'm just running this, like this LFO here, which is the only thing that's actually active. This one is just affecting the filter cutoff of this in this filter rack here, or this effects rack here. And you can see that it's kind of moving up and down. And it is synced to the DAW. So you can see it says sync here, so it syncs to Reaper, and then I just figured out a cool way of kind of, you know, making that work. So what I really love is how that sounds together with the arpeggi, and you get this. And it's just this really cool, weird sound. And if you add the strings to this, I'll just re-solo the strings, and you get this really cool matte of like. You can't really tell that it's there in the main, like the, yeah, cyberpunk crime drama is beautifully, yeah, that's perfect, Nicholas. Yes, that's absolutely the vibe, right? Like it started out with like, well, not Hercule Poirot, but maybe kind of like more of a Miss Marple kind of vibe, and then it kind of went into like cyberpunk Miss Marple, right? So yeah, and then when the track progresses, I just add a top layer to this. And then also another Impact Soundworks instrument that comes in here, which I also really like, is the Hammer Clavier, which is this little thing. The thing. Oh yeah, serious Deus Ex vibes, says Nick. Yes, absolutely. Deus Ex is a really good pull too, and that is absolutely also like it wasn't the main inspiration for this, but it seeps through, right? I feel like all us composers are basically just big kind of, I don't know, fly papers of music. We just kind of walk around and things just get stuck, and then eventually when we sit down to write, it just kind of comes together. So yeah, you get this full texture when everything comes together right here, which is this like really cool like, and then we add the strings to that as well, and then we get this massive kind of. And we then add in the violin textures on top of this, and then we get this really, like, this was when I knew, right, like, that I felt like, okay, I'm onto something here, right? So yeah, that takes care of the strings and the odd little extra things that I added in for the behind the scenes arpeggios. But there's more stuff happening in this track. It so happens that several months ago, my in-laws were about to throw away an old piano. They were moving and they just didn't want to they didn't want to move an old piano that was kind of out of tune, and so they were going to just destroy it and then have it chucked. And I was like, I will never have a better opportunity to do this, right? So I brought my Zoom H4n, I brought this mic and my audio interface, and I just set up shop in their house for like a couple of hours and just recorded a whole bunch of stuff. And so what I really wanted to do was there's this theme in Partum Artifex, which is the idea of the broken artist, right? And I'm not saying that as like broken as in sympathetic. There is absolutely nothing sympathetic about the artist in Partum Artifex, but there's this idea of the acoustic and the chamber, like the highbrow idea of a chamber string orchestra, but then with something broken, right? Something that doesn't quite fit, something that feels weird. And that is where this destroyed piano came in. And you'll hear this a lot in the main Partum Artifex soundtrack as well. But for now, I decided that I wanted basically 4 things, I'd say, from this. I wanted bass notes, I wanted reverse notes, I wanted a high melody that sounded uncomfortable and like it was almost like ripped from the piano itself. And I also needed something for this effect right here. That, right? You see where it goes all... and it turns out the answer to all of those things would be my... Oh, yeah. I mean, Matthias Krantz is actually responsible for the Hammer Clavier, if I'm not mistaken. But this was basically me trying to do what he did, but obviously not as cool, right? But, yeah, so we have low notes, these ones, which are just recorded directly. Like, it's me just... And then, of course, that is processed through, again, my favorite delay in the world, the Bionic Super delay, which is just this, like, wham, wham, wham kind of sound. And then EQ'd to get rid of some of the weirdness up around. Like, I would have identified this. I would have looked at, like, the waveform for it. And I would have realized that around somewhere like 1.24 kHz, okay, there's something weird there. And then a compressor to just kind of beef it up a little bit. And you get these like really wide, and because there's a delay, right, it syncs with the rest. So I'm just gonna bring in the vital and the arpeggi, and you can hear that it syncs with the rest. So it goes... And there are multiple ways of doing this that are smarter than what I did. What I did was, because when I had this flash of inspiration, which is like, oh, I gotta use my cool piano for this part right here, I didn't have the time to import the samples here into a contact instrument and actually do something, clever with it that would have been nice and playable. So instead, you'll note that these are just pitched, right? So this one is adjusted 5 semitones up. This one is adjusted 8 semitones down. And I basically just did that to make sure that it fit with whatever I was doing. And that is all I did. This one is pitched 15 down because it was a different note that I recorded. But that also means that every note sounds different. And then we have these high ones here, which I also have tuned, which I love the sound of these. And that is just like me with like scraping those notes, like the strings in the piano with a fingernail. And then I actually have those. I think you would have heard those in the Hammer Clavier as well, because I have them there in the background. They are right here. You can't hear them, but they kind of add an extra layer to it. And then finally, well, not finally, I also really wanted a cool build-up to where the actual, like, the heaviness starts, like this part, right? Well, not that part. Let's see if I can... That part, right? So what I did was I took that low piano bass note and I did something that all sound designers have done at least 1,000,000 times, which is just reverse it, right? And I did some volume envelope stuff to it so that it wouldn't be too obvious until you really start hearing it over here. But this sounds really cool too. because this is actually not, yes, I realize that now. This is actually not one of the bass notes. This is actually one of the impact sounds that I did, because I exploded several balloons inside of the piano, or really close to the strings in the piano, because I wanted to capture that resonance. And this is one of those, I'm fairly sure. So you get this like kind of sound in the end there. And it's just really cool. And also, of course, like it's pitched and probably also time stretched. And then finally, that last little effect that comes in. Let's see here. Let's see where I put that. It's called scritch. Here we go. Because this is also, it's pitched and reversed. Like the original was just me kind of dragging my fingers across like the highest possible notes on the piano, but then I reversed it and sped it up and pitched it, and you get this really perfect. It just worked really well with that, like that kind of glitch in the image. So that is that. Oh no, actually that's not all, because I did add, because I realized that the very end was a little naked, so I added just a few string harmonics right at the very end, just an open. As well, that I could just kind of leave there, and do something else with. And that, and then of course I would be remiss if I didn't mention the trailer hits. These guys. Just the earth-shattering kaboom. Mel asks, joined late, so I may have missed this, but did you get to score to picture for this trailer? I did, absolutely. However, this is going to sound a little weird. I scored it to picture insofar as I knew, like, the start here is exactly timed, right? So because I have sound design happening here. So the trailer starts with just the character walking in, pressing the play button on this, and then there's a quick thing that happens. Basically, it's supposed to sound like you're listening to the tape, but only this start here is actually coming from the tape recorder, and then the rest of the recording actually comes from, like, a narration that happens. So we kind of move from, like, diegetic to non-diegetic. But then, the rest of it, the first version that I had that was actually scored more to picture. There is one particular part that Joachim does here. Let's see it. I'm just gonna see if I can find it. It's gonna be right here. Yes, it's right here. And it is timed in Joachim's edit so that the final blackout here happens when I say art very clearly. And I ended up when I got to this point in the original scoring for this, I just wasn't happy with how the whole thing moved because it felt too scored, if that makes sense. It didn't feel like a trailer. It felt like I had like it was a movie that I was writing music for, and I really wanted to get the impact and the build up that would come from a trailer. And so I scrapped all of that and started over again. And that is the version that we hear here. So I did have some things, right? Like I knew exactly when it was going to end, which is why I could do that thing with the logo. That part, right? But I actually didn't use when I got started and I knew the start and the end of the video, I have it here for reference to make sure that it all works, right? But I also ended up not referencing the visuals as much as I thought I would because I already had a clear, dramatic start and finish, if that all makes sense. It's always a different kind of workflow for every single project, right? But for this one, it felt better to do it that way. I was actually I was very happy with how it sounded when I sent it to Joachim, but I was also a little scared that he would go, nah, I think maybe you should, and then in that case, I had the old scrapped version that I could have continued with. I have since, I think, deleted that, but I just didn't want to keep it around. or I put it on a backup drive somewhere. I genuinely don't remember where that version is anymore. But I hope I answered your question there. It's a mix, basically. No, I mean, Joachim, that was not your fault. You said you loved this, you thought it was amazing, and that was really fun to hear, and I was very happy. So I was just very happy to hear that. You'll notice here that I actually do have my VO here on a muted channel, and this was just here to make sure that it would fit, right, with Joachim's original edit. Because what Joachim sent me was the video with my narration timed to his edit, but with nothing, you know, of course, nothing else. And so I did the rest of it. Okay, so I think, yeah, so the trailer, I should just address those real quick, because that is just, let's see if I have them here still. I do not, but I can show you. It's this just like, yeah, it's this, right? I'm just gonna load this, because if I've ever encountered a VST that smells like Axe body spray, it's this one. Let me just show it to you real quick. Like, just look at this. It's even animated, right? The stink lines are coming off this purple cyborg, whatever it is. You can just tell that someone is using some sort of body spray here. But this one is just really low boom. And it is also a demo. I haven't, like, it's the free edition that they released. I haven't actually bought the full one yet. This is the free sampler that they released, and I could use that. And I was just like, heck yeah, I'll just go with that. And it serves its purpose. I'm actually using 2 hits. I'm using one that goes, and then another one that goes. And I have done some EQing to them. Interestingly enough, the only EQing I seem to have done, let's see if I did anything to the other one. Okay, so I did a slight bass roll-off just at like sub-bass level for the heaviest one of them, and then I rolled off the top of the other one, and you just get this deafening just... and like, it's intentionally massive, right? Yeah, I know, like, Evolution, Devastator, Warzone. It's just like, it's the most like, I say this with a lot of love because I have good friends who work in this industry, right? But it feels very much like a Destiny trailer, right? It's like this, like, ooh, and it just works, right? And both me and Joachim we were very, very clear on the fact that when I go, this world is sick, after that we wanted a boom, and I just added it, right? It's just there. It's there. I take full responsibility for it. It's there. Now, once I had done this, with this more powerful computer, I would have just mixed this in the Reaper. I also turned off this master limiter. I just had this on there to make sure that the levels were okay before. So I turned this off, of course, and then what I ended up having to do because my templates were broken because I migrated them, and long story short, so I basically just selected all of this and then soloed track by track and exported everything, right, into new WAV files, and took them into PA Trailer Music SFX VO1. This world smells sick, filled with Axe Africa. And then I took all of these WAV files and I chucked them in here, which is my first mix, right? Or what I like to think of as the music mix, right? Like, I still have the VO up here, so you can still hear it, right?
I've got something I want to tell you.
But it's muted because I just have it there for reference. And now we're mixing, right? Let's see if I did anything else to that. No, I didn't. I think the intro here remained completely unchanged. Yeah, it did. But now I'm doing certain other things, right? So, for instance, I have categorized everything nicely and neatly now. So we have keys, we have synths, which is just one, and we have strings, which is quite big, and we have my send down here with the reverb. And The strings, these are my colors, by the way. It's always fun to hear what colors other people use. I have many friends who work as professional composers, and they all have their own color scheme. To me, sound effects are like a dark purple, keys are white, percussion is dark or black, synths are like a kind of like a more violet shade of purple, kind of, I guess, and strings are golden or, you know, yellow. And sometimes I do like a shade where violin is the lightest, and then I go darker and darker. I have this really neat thing in Reaper where if I make a new track and I call it brackets strings with capital letters and end brackets and then press enter, then Reaper automatically adds this little icon to it and also puts the right color on it. And I also have a quick thing that I made before, this little window here, which is called track folder adder. This was one of those days when I just had too much random energy. I needed to do something, but I didn't have it in me to work, so I just made all of these little buttons, and I can just click them, and that just adds these already colored in nice little tracks that I can then, you know, do stuff with. So you can see that woodwinds to me are green, brass is orange, and vocals are blue, and then drums, percussion are both black. Yeah, it's like, I don't know that, yeah, Nick says more evidence towards the all music people have synesthesia folder. I don't know that I have synesthesia, but I do, I guess, maybe. I do clearly associate certain instruments with certain colors, but it's not like I can, like some people, like Adam Neely, for instance, he hears and like he sees chords, right? So like a D major would be like kind of like a warm yellowish orange to him or something like that. It probably isn't. I'm probably misremembering. I don't have that, but I do have a very clear idea of what instrument has what color, right? So now we come to the mixing phase, and now is where I start categorizing stuff. So now I want everything nice and neat, so I know where everything is, and so that I can like do things with them individually. And now is where I do panning and other things. So for violins here, I have internally, like the folder track itself is not panned, but internally in the folder, each section is panned slightly differently. So this one is panned quite hard to the left. This one is 30%, and this one is just 5%, because there is no such thing as standard like orchestra seating really, but there also kind of is. Like most orchestras tend to kind of adhere to this fan shape, right? So over here you would have the first violins, second violins, violas, celli, and then double basses, right? And you would have them in this kind of fan shape, and then you would be sitting here, or the conductor would be standing here, right? With the principal violin player sitting about there, right? And so when I pan my strings, I tend to do it like this. So we have the light strings that are panned quite hard to the left. I'm just going to solo just them. And I also treated them with some EQ. This is where I do some hard cuts and harsh decisions. For instance, I don't think in this particular case the violins have any business having anything happening below like 500 hertz, basically. Like there's some stuff there, but I'm primarily interested in the high-end stuff. I give them a little warmth boost at 857, another little boost at 3005 there, 305 kilohertz, and another, like, just opening them up above 6,000 hertz or so. This one here is something a composer friend of mine calls the what's it called in English? Rosen? Yeah, the Rosen, right? Like when the bow, like the strings on the bow, when they kind of go against the strings on the instrument, and you kind of get this kind of like slightly sharp grip sound. It's different for every section, but that is kind of where I tend to find it in violins, and so I tend to give that a little boost because I enjoy the slight little sharpness that it gives. And then I open it up above 6,000 hertz here because I enjoy that it's a little more sharp and a little lighter. I know a lot of people don't do this, but I like that, and I will do that with live recorded strings as well, and not just like not just samples, although I do like to do it with samples as well because they are sampled after all. And yeah, exactly, Mel. Emphasizing the rasp, that's the word. That's a great word for it. Like it's subtle, but I feel like you can tell when it's not there, right? Joachim says, there are two things that are devastating for me with a bad left ear. One, give good feedback on music, and two, play CSGO. Oh no. Well, with accessibility options getting more and more common in games these days, I feel like you should be more, like, better catered to now with modern games, or you should be, at least. But yeah, so you, I can just play the high strings with, well, first without the EQ, and then with, and you can probably tell the difference. Like, it's subtle, but I feel like you can really tell that it's there when you turn it on. Like, it's this kind of extra shimmer quality to it that I just really like. And if this track were only high violins, I probably wouldn't emphasize it as much. But now that it's a full ensemble of, like, well, the full string orchestra, I really want to kind of put some extra emphasis on it. Let's move on down to violas, which I would have around the middle here. Let's see here. I'm just gonna, yeah, so yeah, you'll be able to tell that I've kind of put these around center pan. So these are slightly to the left, these are slightly to the right, these are slightly to the right, and these are slightly more to the left. And so we get just the violas here. And by the way, I have EQ'd these as sections. If this were live strings, I probably would EQ each part individually if needed. It's not always needed. Sometimes just panning and volume is enough. And you can tell that I'm doing some volume stuff here as well on the faders. Not so much here. I just kind of let the play strings go down a little bit more, but I'm doing a lot of it here. Primarily because there are more violas here. I have a lot of violas, like double the amount from the rest. But I have EQ'd this as a section because it just, it's enough, right? So for the violas, the bass EQ is a lot less aggressive, and also, well, it's just as aggressive, but a lot further down because there's more low-end content. A slight reduction, I talked about that before with the boxiness at around 200 hertz. I like to tame that a little bit. A slight increase in warmth at around 400 hertz or so, and then the rasp again at around 3.85 kilohertz. And that is just, you know, with it on, and then without it on. Like, I feel like you can tell. It's subtle, again, but you can tell. And then we get to the cello. I mean, I'm not going to do this, like, super detailed because it's basically the same. I've kept these in the middle. Let's see what I did exactly with the double basses. Yeah, so my thinking here would have been, because normally I would have put the cello and the double basses a lot more to the right. But in this case, I wanted those stabs, those da-dum, da-dum things, I wanted those to be more in the middle. And so I haven't actually panned all of them that hard. I took one of the double basses and I put that slight, like, at around like 48% to the right. So there's no real hard pan on each side. I think the harshest pan is probably, yeah, about 60% to the left. But yeah, for the cello or celli, the celli, no cut in the bass at all because I want the bass here and a slight lift here, slight lowering here to get rid of the boxiness. And here, the rasp, the rosin kind of like that moves down to 2.8 or so. And I think I'm probably using the same. Yeah, I'm not even EQing. I added an EQ for the lower part here for the double basses, but I would have realized at that point that it wasn't really necessary. So together you had this like. And putting it all together. these ones too, please. And all of this is sent to, oh yeah, and also I have the full section down here, and that is for the textures, which I have actually done some extra volume automation on after the fact. And I've also EQ'd it a tiny bit more. I would have realized that that was probably a little too harsh, about 9,000 hertz or so. And then the string harmonics at the very end, I haven't EQ'd those. And then the Furious staccato strings, where I've done some fairly aggressive reduction at around 200 hertz, a slight bump down here, slight reduction or pretty aggressive reduction here, and a Rosen bump at around 5.3 kilohertz. So yeah. And then all of those things to various degrees are, if necessary, sent to my reverb, which is down here. And this reverb is Valhalla Room, which I really like. It's just a very nice bread and butter reverb. Fairly cheap too. It's not free, but it's fairly cheap. And Valhalla, they make a lot of very good stuff, like Valhalla DSP. I can recommend their stuff. And the EQ, there's an EQ on the reverb as well. The difference is fairly obvious if you listen for it. Like if I turn off the EQ, right? And then I turn it on. Basically, I'm cutting off everything that's like around below like 400 hertz or so from the reverb itself. Because one of the things that the reverb will do is amplify things, right? Because, well, I guess depending on the type of reverb and stuff, but basically it's just, it doubles things and then does a lot of calculations with them. And what you want to really make sure is that you want to get rid of any doubling of like uncomfortable low end, because reverbs tend to make the mix muddy very quickly. So I tend to be conservative with my reverbs, and I also tend to be, I always EQ them. So that's a tip that I want to give people who might be watching this when it comes to mixing with reverb. You want to be careful with reverb. It can quickly get out of hand, and I always recommend just cutting everything like around here or so. Sometimes you don't want that, of course, so it's always a case by case, but do keep it in mind. And then let's just check what happened to our fun little the synths and the mat here. Yeah, so I think I've actually added Bionic Super Delay to the Hammer Clavier here, which wasn't in the previous version. But I think I just realized at that point that I just wanted more of the delay, and so I added more. You can also tell here below this track and this track as well that I've done, and also this track. Like you can tell from multiple places here that I have done a lot of like manual volume envelopes, because I want to control how loud anything is at any given point, right? And let's check the high notes here. Did I do anything with those? No. In hindsight, like I didn't do that here, but in hindsight, I might have gone with just because of this. I hear something here that I'm not entirely happy with now. Right there, right? Let's see if I can just... Excuse me for a second. This is just... Now it's just me being nerdy here. There. Nope. There. Somewhere. Something like that, I think. Yeah, that's a little better. I didn't do that in this mix, but I think if I had gone over it again, because now I'm hearing some resonances in the higher, like the really high end of the scraped top piano there that I probably would have wanted to curb, but I didn't, so that's fine. And I have done some extra, yeah. So the reverse piano here that I did, I've added another bionic super delay to, which just gives it this really cool like it just gives it a bit more depth, and I think it sounded cool. Let's see. I think that's basically it for the mixing. I'm gonna just leave a little space here for if anyone in chat has a question for me thus far before I move on to the last part of this. Nope, doesn't seem like it. Okay, cool. Well, now we move on. So this time I would have exported with a limiter. Not a severe one, I don't think. Yeah, it's just a master limiter at -3, just to make sure that nothing like gets way above what it should be. And now I exported everything that was, you know, with the VO muted. And now we move on to number PA trailer music SFX VO number 2. And now we only have 2 tracks. 3 if you want to count the trailer video itself, but we don't for these purposes here. And so we only have 2 tracks now. I don't know why I chose to make the trailer very green and the VO very golden brown, but that is what it is. And now it is just mixing the whole thing for the video. And so this one, PA trailer stems all music and FX. It is just everything that is the sound effects, the opening little...
November 8th.
The narration and sound effects from the very start, and the music itself. And you can see here, I do have an EQ on here, and it is basically just doing a very aggressive but kind of slow and gentle dive around, like with a dip at 249. And what this is basically is to allow for the voiceover to, you know, have more space. Because what I really wanted to avoid was for the voiceover to collide with the music. Which, of course, carries with it the perhaps unwanted effect of the music not... Like, you can't really tell that all of these layers are happening in the background of the... Like, in the music, because I'm talking over it. But, yeah, so... You can tell this one is just... I mean, it's basically peaking right here. It is peaking, but since this is digital audio we're looking at the meter over here and not the meter here. This is in, like, currently to me irrelevant. Not really, but yeah. So we have the finished mix here. And now you can tell that I'm doing a lot of stuff here. Like, all of this is manual volume envelope stuff. Basically writing the fader to make sure that the narration can always cut through. Sometimes when the narration makes a little break, like for instance right here, you can see that I do a small bump up in the volume here. Same here. And then when the narration finally stops here, I increase the volume quite a lot so that we can get like the finisher here. And let's look at my final EQ stuff. I just did I'm not even sure this really mattered, but I feel like this is one of those things where you just go like, I just want a little thing. You know, I just want to add, basically I'm my own worst enemy, and I just go like, oh, I just want to add a small thing here. I'm not sure this mattered, but it's there. And then we have the Kjærhus classic master limiter, which is just beef it up and make sure it doesn't peak. And what we finally have is this, when it all comes together, right?
This world is sick, filled with scum and filth, twisted people who are only out there to harm, to cause pain, only to please themselves. People just like me. But I've got something I want to tell you. I want the world to finally open its eyes and react, so we can finally save the innocent. And I'm going to do that in the one way I know best. Quite frankly, it is the only way, the purest way, through art. I need someone to help me out, because this is not a one-man project. Please, why don't...
Whoop, excuse me.
Please, why don't you join me and be part of the creation?
And there we have it. That is the whole thing, from original idea to scrapped idea, which I didn't show you, to the idea you see here, composing the whole thing, putting it all together, mixing it and mastering it for the trailer. And that is it. That is how this track is constructed. It was just so much fun to do this, and I love trailer scoring. I don't get to do it a whole lot because normally a lot of people just, oh, hi. Hi, Acapella VGM. You're just, you're a little late. I'm sorry. We already did the whole thing. The VOD will be up though. So, but yeah, this was so much fun. And I don't get to do a whole lot of trailer scoring, because normally a lot of the projects that I work on, they tend to just take one of my music tracks and just put that on top of footage, which works, right? But in this case, I really got to do the whole thing, like all the sound effects, the narration, and the music composition. And of course, I will be composing, doing the sound effects and voicing the game itself as well. So this is I treasure this opportunity, and Joachim is such a wonderful person to work with too. So yeah, Mel, this is so wonderful to see broken down. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming and for staying with me as I broke down this whole thing. It was super fun. I love like getting to talk about my thought process, not only because it's fun to share, but it's also an opportunity for me to kind of rediscover what it was that I did, because sometimes I genuinely do not remember. Like, I don't know what y'all, how you deal with this, but the final hours of a mix, it tends to just kind of be a blur, and I don't quite remember what I did. It's just like, okay, it's done, render, right? But now it is done, and the trailer is out there, and now we are just working hard on the game itself, Partum Artifex, which TBA release date for that one, but it is coming. And me and Joachim are working close together and to make the best, coolest horror experience that we can. Acapella VGM, I'll rewatch the VOD. Still glad I could catch you for even a sec. I'm really happy you came. I tried streaming a little bit later because I know a lot of people have like engagements during the Sundays, but it's also like a very good time for me to stream. So I'm trying to start at around like 9 p.m. my time, which tends to be afternoon-ish for Americans, I think. Joachim, we need to make a gameplay trailer later. Heck yeah, we do. I'm there for it. You just send me the stuff, man, and I'm happy to mix it for you. But yeah, the final product, I can't say more about it right now. But please do, if you're watching this and you haven't already, please do wishlist this on Steam. The link will be in the description to do that. Please follow the YouTube account and the Twitter account, where you'll get more news about Partum Artifex as it is developed. And you can also follow me. All my socials are in the description of this video as well, if you want to stay on top of what I'm doing. And I think that's basically it, unless anyone had any questions for me, which I can absolutely answer before we call it quits for today. Acapella, yeah, this time would work. I was binging a show and missed the notification. Oh, that's entirely fine. Sertelia has loved getting some insights into making trailer music. I'm really glad. I am probably going to do more of these streams where I bring up I just go through a track that I wrote. Either like if it's orchestration, like I'll walk through like a finished version, like one of my massive orchestra projects for real musicians, and I'll walk through like the notation and stuff and the orchestration for that, if that would be interesting. Or I can go through a music track that I've written or arranged with VSTs, if that might be interesting too. I'm happy to get any kind of suggestions, so please let me know in the comments or via Twitter if there's anything you want me to do more specifically. Joachim says, it's like every tiny game design choice I make, they might be cool, but I keep forgetting about the reasonings behind it because it gets added in the blurry mist. Yeah, I know, right? It's just this fog. Oh, hi, Luke. I'm sorry, you're just in time for me to wrap this stream up, I'm afraid. But if you want, you can check out the VOD. We went through the whole trailer from start to finish and every part of it. It was a lot of fun. All right, well, I think that'll be it for today. Thank you all for coming, and I will see you on the next stream. I'm aiming to stream every Sunday at around 9 p.m. CEST, where like whatever time that would be for you. And we'll see. My health has been a little shaky recently, but hopefully I can keep that up for now on. And we'll do a lot of different things. I want to go through some sort of like, I want to show you what it's like to write some chiptune and stuff like that as well. That could be fun. But yeah, thank you all for coming, and I hope you all have a lovely rest of your Sunday. Take care.